No, unfortunately, Air Canada didn't get me here in time.
Hello everyone, I'm Keenan Adams, BC Conservative candidate for Port Coquitlam. I'd also like to acknowledge that Zishan Walla, candidate of Surrey City Centre, is here with us today. It is my great pleasure to stand before you today and introduce to you a man who has been fighting for British Columbians for over 2 decades. John Rustad is the leader of the Conservative Party of British Columbia and the person who has given the people of our province hope after the radical ideology of the NDP has put drugs on our street, crippled our economy, and caused our cost of living to skyrocket. After becoming an independent MLA, he then joined the Conservative Party of BC because he realized he must continue to fight and he can't do it alone. I am thrilled to be part of that team, helping him with this fight. As a union train engineer, I know what hard work means. The NDP's disastrous policies have hurt the people that keep this province moving. Endless red tape and bureaucracy have led to the stagnation of building permits and job opportunities. David Eby makes big promises to union workers during elections, yet I have colleagues who work 60 hours a week and are still unable to get by. The NDP has abandoned us for the last 7 years. Enough is enough. We must cut government red tape, grow our economy, build affordable, livable homes. It's time to take the power back from the bureaucrats in Victoria and get this province working and building again. So without further ado, please help me welcome the man who has brought hope back to British Columbia and our next Premier, John Rustad.
Well, thank you very much, Keenan and Zishan, and it's great to be able to be here, especially great to be able to be on a site where good construction is going on. This announcement we're doing today is really about what we need to be doing for our future in British Columbia. Today we have a government that seems to think the private sector doesn't have a role in housing. I can't quite understand why they get to that point, but there's no question when you look at it, the numbers don't lie. The numbers, quite frankly, are startling when you look at what is happening in British Columbia. The NDP have had 7 years to be able to try to resolve the issues of housing, yet all we've seen is the conditions worsen. For example, over those 7 years, housing costs for as simple as a townhouse have gone up by 55%. To pay $1 million now for a townhouse in a middle-class area. The increases for a condo have gone up 36% in 7 years. And today in Vancouver, it's $3,700 for a 2-bedroom apartment to rent. And when you look at the trajectory in other cities around the province, it is not much different. There has also been a startling 34% increase in homelessness in this province over 7 years. And as you wonder about how do we get to this place, well, I can tell you, there are tens of thousands of shovel-ready projects that are stalled out. These are projects that are permitted, but because of the economic policies of this government, they're no longer financially viable, they're stalled out, and they are not advancing. And on top of that, at a time when we have a crisis in housing, when we have a crisis in supply, we've seen housing starts drop in this province. Nearly 1/3 just over the past year alone, and that's from across all parts of BC. The reality is simple. The process that the government has been doing has failed. It's a big government approach to solving housing, and it is not meeting what is needed in British Columbia. And this is why our plan to get BC building is going to make a huge difference in terms of housing starts and getting people the homes that they want to live in British Columbia. We're going to start, though, by knowing that it's going to take some time to build housing. It doesn't just happen overnight. Projects like this take months, if not years, to finish. So in the meantime, that's why we've introduced the Rustad rebate, to introduce the largest tax relief possible in this province for housing for both renters and homeowners. That rebate will be up to $3,000 a month for people, whether they're renting or whether they're paying a mortgage or strata fees, and that'll allow them to be able to write that off against their taxes as a tax credit, providing close to $1,800 for individuals across the province when it's fully implemented. However, as I said before, getting housing going is the key here. We need to act like it is the crisis that it is, because there's no question in my mind when you are talking to somebody who's thinking about leaving this province, particularly youth, or 1 in 2 people are thinking about leaving this province, they want to have housing, and they want to have housing now. So we need to be able to focus on making sure that we can get things built in this province in a timely way. So what we will plan to do is we are going to be targeting to have 6-month time frame targets for zoning and permitting, and 3 months for getting a building permit. This means that we will significantly be able to improve the time frame it takes to actually get construction happening in this province, and we'll be working with city halls across the province to be able to meet these timelines. Of course, a big part of this is zoning. There's lots of work that needs to be done with zoning. So we're going to be working with cities to do proactive zoning, a process to make sure that densification in our cities can be zoned in advance, so that neighborhoods, when people move into neighborhoods, they know what to expect. But most importantly, by doing that, it makes it far simpler for companies to be able to go through the process within city halls. We're also going to go to a place where we are going to actually put our trust in the professionals that design and build these homes, particularly the high-skilled professionals like architects and engineers with the plans that they put together. And we will work with the cities to bring an end to this continual back and forth and wasting of time and second-guessing of these high-skilled individuals in the post. So we will enact a presumption of compliance laws so that the municipal government and regulators must presume that the BC professionals can perform, peer-review their work in accordance with the rules. When you talk about getting BC building in this province, there's one thing that is very clear. Building a home is one thing, but it's not a home until somebody moves into it. Part of the challenge that the building sector has today are the building codes that are being put in place and the other hidden costs that have been structured by this NDP government. It's estimated that the costs have increased between 30 and 40% for middle-class housing under this NDP, with their hidden taxes associated with the step code and other components associated with this. We will repeal the step code. We'll make sure that we are going to be building affordable, quality homes in British Columbia, and we will remove all the other cost structures that are being mandated by this NDP government associated with housing. When it comes to looking at transit, there's no question in my mind we need to be expanding transit, especially in places like Surrey, but right across the Lower Mainland. And so when we're talking about that, yes, we will be looking at making sure that we do densification around transit. We'll make sure that that as a critical component goes forward, but associated with that, we will also amend it to make sure that new transit-oriented communities will also have the space available for grocery stores, small businesses, and other types of amenities that will be within walking distance. Important piece when communities are being built out. As I mentioned before, we have so much regulation that has been put in place associated with housing that it makes it very difficult for anybody to be able to actually get through and build things, not to mention the costs. So we'll amend the Local Government Act to prevent any home-killing red tape that has been introduced by this government or that is through the process that you see within municipalities. We need to get to a place where things are just getting built in this province. We'll also make sure that we protect private property rights and establish a BC Development Tribunal to hold regulators and politicians accountable to the rule of law and fair process. We'll reform the development charge costs so that DCCs can be paid at the end of development projects as opposed to up front. As part of that is part of growth pays for that growth that needs to be done. This is all part, once again, of making sure that projects can get done quickly and that we don't have a massive amounts of cost structure that's put into place in advance. And we'll be looking at areas that currently are not serviced, where we can be able to expand development. There are places, for example, just in Surrey alone, where you could have significant development of new homes but do not have services. So it's an important piece of making sure that we can actually find place to be able to build homes in this province. Land costs are huge, and so by making more land available, that helps to level out those costs and helps to expand housing. When it comes to what the NDP have done with things like Bill 44 and what they've done in terms of overriding local governments, we believe that we should be working with cities. We shouldn't be dictating to cities. So Bill 44 will be repealed, but what we will do in place of that is we will work with municipalities to work through the proactive zoning that needs to be done. And we'll also work with municipalities that want to be able to do the provisions of Bill 44, and we'll work and find ways of being able to support those municipalities to make sure that that growth can be done, though, in a structured and organized way. It doesn't help when you've got housing going in, when you don't have parking, you don't have issues for traffic, a way to be able to address traffic, you don't have water and sewer, you don't have the other amenities that are needed in this province. I announced at UBCM that we'll be putting $1 billion annually towards municipalities to deal with water and sewer upgrades. As we all know, in order to be able to do any kind of housing, you need to be able to have those basics. Municipalities across this province have a shortfall. They're estimating that shortfall is $25 billion that's needed over the next 10 years. This project will not only help to meet that need, but most importantly, it'll unlock the potential of what we have to be able to do densification and to be able to get housing built. We're also going to make sure that we stop what the NDP is doing in terms of putting forward these low barrier housing into communities. These things end up just distributing problems within communities right across this province, especially when it's next door to whether it is whether it is playgrounds or schools. These things cannot go forward, and if there are projects that are not good neighbors, they will have to be shut down or reallocated or repurposed, I should say. One of the big things that owning housing is one thing, but the challenge, of course, for many people is to be able to actually be able to get rent. Back when the baby boomers had children, there was a huge surge in people looking for places to live in this country. People looking for places to be able to rent. And so there was a program of the day that worked very effectively for being able to help with building those rental constructions. It was called the old MERV program, which is short for multi-unit. Sorry, lost. I want to make sure I got this right. It's the problem with using it off an iPad. The MERV program is designed to be able to advance writing off the capital costs of projects in a much more rapid way. By doing that, it allows these projects to be able to get to profit much faster. It is a huge incentive and was a huge incentive when it was in place back in the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s. Most of the rental stock we have in the province was built at that time. This is a program, of course, that we need to work with the federal government on. Because this original project was federal. However, if the federal government will not come to the table, then we'll design a made in BC approach to make sure that we can get these things going. This type of a program is what we're needed if we want to have if we want to be able to have proper rental units available for people. When you look at supply and demand, there's a number one rule in economics, and that is there will always be a challenge of meeting the supply when demand is too high. When demand is too high, prices go up. And that's what we're seeing. We do not have enough rental units, so demand is too high and prices are going up. And unfortunately, it seems to be the number one rule of David Eby and his government is to ignore the number one rule in economics. And that's really a shame, because this is the key. We need to be able to build out these rental units to be able to stabilize prices and actually bring prices down as rental units do get built out. When you have just a 0.1% vacancy rate, and in many communities it's even less than that, there's no question in my mind this should be a huge focus, and we need to treat it as a crisis in order to be able to address this. There is programs that the NDP has also put in place in the nonprofit sector, particularly when it comes to BC Housing. There has been projects under BC Housing that I find quite questionable. So from my perspective, we need to be able to have a forensic audit of BC Housing. in the work that has been done and making sure that there isn't anything that's inappropriate that has gone on there. There's been too many cases where stuff has happened that has been questionable, and we need to make sure, quite frankly, that it's looked at, and it's looked at carefully in terms of how we look at that program going forward. The last part I just want to quickly touch on is stratas. When we announced the Rustad rebate, we didn't include stratas as part of that. The strata fees as part of that. However, strata fees is also a potential barrier and a cost in terms of housing, so strata fees will be included in the Rustad rebate to be able to allow people that are in strata to be able to write off the costs of their strata fees as part of that, getting the tax break. So overall, when you look at what we've put together as the Conservative Party of British Columbia, it's a comprehensive plan that is going to address the housing issue. The only way to significantly address the housing issue is to get more homes built. We just need to get government out of the way. We need to stop this nonsense that government thinks that it should be running and doing everything. We've got to unleash the potential of the private sector to make sure that houses can be built in this province and made available. We need to make sure that we're focused on the rental units so that people can get in, they can start with some savings, they have a place to be able to live, and then be able to restore once again the dream of British Columbia of being able to own a home, which quite frankly is lost. 1 in 3 people are thinking about leaving this province. 1 in 2 youth are thinking about leaving because they can't see how to build a future. Getting housing built in this province is the only way to be able to address that issue so that people can once again afford to be able to stay in this province, live in this province, and raise a family here. So with that, thank you very much for the opportunity to be introducing this today, and I want to introduce Aaron. Aaron is the co-owner of this project we see behind us, and I'd like him to be able to share a few words here today.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Paul, and I've been operating a construction company alongside my brother Ben behind me here for over a decade. Throughout my career, I've seen how red tape, bureaucracy have turned a housing shortage into a full-blown housing crisis. Over the last 7 years, construction costs have skyrocketed. The barriers, fee increases, and taxes imposed by all levels of government make it almost impossible to deliver affordable housing. The Conservative commitment to work alongside municipalities like the City of Surrey and the Township of Langley to find solutions together for expediting approvals and empowering trusted developers to get projects moving faster will bring meaningful and positive change to the housing industry here in BC. That is why I'm proud to stand with John Rustad today. I truly believe his common sense approach to housing is exactly what this province needs to overcome the crisis and get BC building again. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And I just want to also say thank you to the workers, to the people who are building our homes,